Hello, everyone. So we are here live again with season 5, episode 1. We have a special guest with us, a veteran in the industry for sure, with over more than 25 years of experience across media, worked with some big agencies like WPP, Mindshares, Publicis Group, and right now with Densho International. So we have with ourselves Carolyn Breton, who is right now the CCO at Densho International, specifically a subsidiary Cara. So welcome, Carolyn. We are glad to have you here in the first episode.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And with myself, I also have my dear co-host Charina, and she would be here for, I think so, for all the episode for sure, until she decides that she's not here. So let us move to the first question. Caroline, so what's one thing that you wish you would have known before you started your career? It's interesting that you started as a graduate in a different stream, and then you moved on to the media side of everything, and now you're a veteran itself with the 25 years of experience. I mean, before you start your career, I mean, there would have been surely one thing that you would have wanted that you should have known before you
I wish I had known Excel, but that's a whole other story. I graduated from translation. We didn't use Excel at all. And my first blocking chart, I just erased everything because I didn't understand the formulas. I think my manager from back then is still mad. But I think the one thing I wish I had known is that really being busy and working overtime is not a badge of honor. And I put a lot of pressure on myself when I started in the business to do well and to take on project. And people ask you, and you're always busy. And at some point I realized I've been busy for 15 years. It's not a badge of honor. So it's really important to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't actually do your job. And I think I wish I had known that back in my 20s.
And that's amazing point too. I feel like a lot of students, like when they're trying to get into industry, they're trying to like prove themselves and not really focusing on like their self-care and like mental health, but more focusing on having the job done, taking on more and just succeeding. And I'm actually guilty of that as well. I know that's how I started to, and I just wanted to be the best of the best. But then with the time you realize that you start to burn out, and that's where you start like rethink, okay, why am I doing this and what am I doing? So that's awesome. And Excel tip, oh my gosh, this is the best too. Definitely, this is the best skill probably that we all need in the industry. Okay, so moving on to our second question. So I know like for students and like for new graduates, you're always like looking for mentors, you're looking for people who you get coaching from, or like you're looking for some peers who has a little bit more experience. So who were those people who like have an influence on you when you started? Like who were the most like influential people to you?
I think personally, my father, my dad was a huge influence on my personal and professional life. He's somebody that I looked up to. He unfortunately passed away in 2012, but I think for me, a big moment was at his funeral. A lot of his coworkers, colleagues, boss, employees came, and a lot of them said to me, "Your dad was my work dad." And that just made me so, so proud. So I think he was a big influence. From a work perspective, there are two people that I look up to, and I don't even know that they know that, but Shelley Smith, who was my boss at for close to 5 years, is a very brilliant woman, very energetic, passionate, enthusiastic, loves what she does. And I learned a lot from her just by watching her, watching how she spoke with client, how she tackled challenges, how she addressed problems. She was a huge, huge influence on my career. And then the other one was my boss at Mindshare, Devin McDonald. We started together. He was chief strategy officer and I was a managing director, and we started at the same time. So we developed a friendship, and he eventually became my boss. He became CEO of Mindshare, and he was probably one of my biggest cheerleaders as a boss, and supported me and encouraged me. And he's taught me a lot as well on how to deal with challenging situations. So I would say Devin and Shelley are probably my biggest mentors in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can completely relate with the first part, dad being the first influence in everyone's life. Your story is kind of a similar to mine. Unfortunately for me also the same, that sad thing happened last year. So I completely sync with that. And of course, two brilliant people. I'd say that I know Devon for sure. I don't know about Most probably it should have been, before, when I was even thinking about media for sure. Considering that you're a veteran itself for sure. So yeah, I've seen Devon speaking in a couple of meets. So a great personality for sure, and I think so. People people would be blessed to be working under him. He is in itself as a great personality. So yeah, I mean, I'm in sync with that for sure. Yeah.
I
So
think both,
sorry,
so
sorry.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say both of them are very empathetic people and very kind. And I think kindness goes a long way in this industry. And I think that's probably why I also looked up to them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 100% there, considering that, if someone is not having those two qualities, the life becomes so tough, specifically in the
Mhm.
agency life. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, we are human beings. So yeah, I'm completely syncing with that particular thing. Yeah, I mean, so moving on to the next question without wasting any time, I know that it has been 25 years, and before that also there was studies for you. I mean, it is hard to ask this question, but still, let us see that if let's say there's an 18-year-old Carolyn, what would you tell her? And if we have to turn back to that time, what would be that? Let's not be specific. Let's have few things that what you would tell her in order to understand that these are the things that I want to do in my life.
I think there's three things I would say to myself is that first of all, family comes first. And however you define family, children, parents, childhood friends, those are the most important people in your life, and they should always come first. And I think that I would remind myself of that at 18. I think also to surround yourself with people that not only bring you up, but that complement you. To not be afraid to bring, if my weakness is, for example, I'm quiet in meeting and I'm an introvert, let's not be afraid to bring in somebody who's going to complement me and be that voice in the meetings, and we can work well together. And I think sometimes people might feel threatened by personalities, people that have strength that they don't have, but I think that that's what creates amazing work and amazing collaboration and teamwork. And then when you have a decision to make, trust your gut. Always trust your gut. So those are the things I would say to my 18-year-old self.
And that's a great advice, I would say. The first one, I definitely can relate. Like, I'm actually from Ukraine, and like my family right now is back home, and like this is the time for you like to realize that like my work will be here all the time,
Yeah.
and my clients will stay. And even if I do like and do overtime today and work more, work will be still here tomorrow. But what's important is really like to spend time with your family,
Yeah.
with your parents, like all your grandparents. So definitely agree with that. And the other 2 points are amazing too, because this is like really like super important right now. And for all those students who are like graduating like right now in college or about to graduate, that's important to know, because we sometimes we just start to forget and focus on
Yeah.
like having the job, I don't know, like completed, or even getting the job. And we kind of lose your like ourselves, especially with COVID right now, like with all these things that happened, we kind of lost ourselves a little bit and started just focusing on the things that probably shouldn't have been a priority in the moment. So yeah, definitely agree. And also just wanted to ask about the resources. I know when we start, it's usually like difficult to understand like what the right decision, like what the right resources for us, like where should I go, what should I do. So what were like the best resources that probably you know of or like utilized when you were starting?
Honestly, it's the people and the relationships that I've made over the years, even now. If whether it's questions, whether it's you need help with a client, whether you made a mistake and you need to figure out how to tackle it, whether it's a reference or you're probing about a job, I think my most valuable resource in this industry are the people that I've worked with, that I've met, and the friendships that I've forged over the years.
I think so.
And
Sorry, go ahead, Dorina.
so I just wanted to say that's amazing, and definitely agree. For a lot of students, I feel like when you're a student, you're not realizing yet like why do you need networking? Why do you need to know people? Why you need to actually spend time for that? Like, what is networking? Like, why you need? And that's what we are not taught in college or in university. Maybe, I don't know, in some career course a little bit, but definitely great to know and hear that from you as an expert professional, that this is really what help you along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's the same thing as Dorina mentioned, but just wanna point out that this is really a crucial point that people do not understand, that what is the importance of their co-workers, irrespective of the fact that they are their subordinates or there is, your reporting manager. Irrespective of the fact, you can always learn from even with your subordinates. I learn every day with my subordinates for sure.
Yeah.
A reason being, I might not be knowing those detailed points that he or she might be able to tell me. So people are the your lending help hand, I'd say, lending hand for anything that you want to require, anything that you want to have in a day. On the second point that you mentioned, that like Darina mentioned, but specifically considering that we were the students, like we were in school just a couple of years back, Darina, and I was there in the last year. I mean, I was lucky enough to be having on an agency side on a contract from the day one, but they were my colleagues who weren't there, who wanted to know, who wanted to understand with people, or specifically from the media side or the agency side, that how does it work, how does it function, and there are still people reaching out. So the important thing is, um, they're the professors, the people with who you are working, and this is something that I think so would be the next big thing in schools specifically, that how do you want to transform yourself and speak with people and understand the language in order to build that connection. Because um, I don't know how much uh, knowledge can you gain from those books, but the biggest knowledge that you'll gain is from people, and
Yes.
that is the truth. I mean, I'm so happy that you are here, and specifically after that answer, I cannot define it, but yeah, that is the answer, that is the best answer that I've listened till now. I can say it with a guarantee for sure. Everyone can look back at those 25 episodes for sure. I mean, people is something that not everyone can define and can understand. So I'm glad that you brought that particular point for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, again, moving on to the next point. This is a very interesting question. This was brought up
Yeah,
by
that's a
me.
good question.
Yeah, that was brought up by me, and this is only the second time that I'm asking that question. So that's another good thing. So let me put this question. So if in the next 150 years, or maybe 200 years, let us put it 200 years. We don't want 150 years. 200 years, if the world ends and there's no science and technology fails us, and there's only a book that is left. And so, so let me put it in this way, that if that book is left about only Carol, then what would be the title about it? And what would be the blurb? And I want you to just let us understand the blurb and the title, please. I mean, just do not say it, just this would be a title. I want you to define that, what would be the meaning? What is the crux behind it?
So the title of my book will be A Life I'll Never Forget. And I think for me, I've had an amazing life, both personal, professional. I've been extremely lucky and privileged. I've traveled to 26 countries. I have scuba dived, I have climbed mountains, I have kayaked rivers in Africa. My dad taught me to not be afraid, to not let fear stop me from doing things. And I think my book would be about my adventures and my experiences and the people that I've met along the way. I've had a great career, but in the end, title doesn't mean anything. If you do something that you love, that you're passionate about, it doesn't matter what your title is, what your salary is. So I look at my life holistically as a whole. And, I've had an amazing life. I've had some amazing travel adventures. I've met some fantastic people that some was an intense 2 days and I'll never speak to them again. And some, 20 years later, we're still friends. And I have memories for a lifetime, and I think that's the blurb. That's the blurb about my life.
And that's incredible. And I'm so happy for you. Honestly, I feel like right now, for a lot of people, not a lot of people can say that they had like amazing life. They're super happy with where they're at. So I'm super happy that that would be your blurb. And also, I feel like that would be also very motivational and inspiring book for a lot of people out there, for different generations too.
Yeah.
So I'm super happy to hear that, and also admire like how much you were doing your hobbies. That is truly amazing, and I just wish that we all have time to realize what we really want to do and what is the best for us. So definitely that's incredible. I'm super happy to hear that. And yeah, moving on quickly to our next question. So when like you're, and I'm just going back all the time to like being a student or being just a person who just entering the industry. Just want to make sure that people who are watching us today, they can really like relate to that and understand like why it's important. Just wanted to mention that like when I was a student and I came to Canada only like 3 years ago, I was looking at different jobs and I was like, they all look the same almost. Like there's social specialists, social managers, social media specialists, coordinators. You look at that, and of course, like if it's manager job, yes, of course, like they look for a different experience, like 5 years or like 6 years, but all other positions kind of look the same. So it's difficult to understand what is the person is actually doing if you actually don't speak to that person.
Yes.
So my question is to you is, what is your job like, and what do you do right now on a daily basis?
So on paper, my role is really, there's 4 core pillars to my role. One is to support my client leads. And whether it's with staffing, structure, scope of work, P&L, or client challenges, that's my number 1 priority, making sure that my client leads are set up for success with their clients. Then it's about elevating the quality of our work. So it's making sure that everybody is up to speed and trained on our planning framework. It's making sure that we know how to challenge bad briefs. It's about pushing our media partners to think outside the box, but making sure that we give them good briefs and give them the time to think. It's about awards and making sure that we really, really are elevating our game and delivering good work. Then there's a new business. Part of my job is new business as well. So, helping write that pitch story and presenting to new client. And the 4th one is really liaising with my global counterparts. So Dentsu is obviously an international network. Kara has offices around the world. So it's making sure that I'm tapped into what is happening globally and what are, global KPIs. How do those trickle down to Canada and how do we implement that here? So that's the role on paper. Lately, I'm going to be honest, a lot of my job is dealing with people leaving. The market is absolutely crazy right now. There's a lot of turnover. People are being offered a lot of money to go work elsewhere. And you know what? I'm glad. I'm really, really glad to see that the media industry, that the salaries are probably readjusting at the more junior level. But it's hard, right? So you have to deal with clients that are upset because they're losing good talent. You have to deal with teams that are short staffed and that are tired and so that's a big portion of my day now. If I looked at my agenda today, so I started off, I had a client status with one of our global clients. So with my counterparts in Asia and with the clients. Then I had an SLT meeting, so a senior leadership meeting to define what our KPIs will be for 2022. I had a status with one of my client lead to make sure that from a staffing perspective and a P&L perspective, we're delivering. I reviewed some scopes of works. And then tonight I actually have an 8 o'clock call with our client that's based out of Asia to review some work that has been presented. So I get a mix of everything, but right now it's dealing with staffing.
I do get it. I mean, that's so good to hear. I'm glad to hear someone, speaking about this schedule. That's something that I haven't, like we have, Dorina, I think so, a lot of people, but someone haven't specifically spoken about their schedule. So I'm glad that, how a senior level, specifically a CCO level person might have a schedule. Considering that I also have a background from Denshu, I do understand that attrition rate.
Yeah.
Uh, because here is something that I want to tell, for all of us. Denshu, people say it back in Asia specifically. I don't know about North America because I worked in Denshu in Asia, that Denshu is the best place to garner knowledge. It's the best place. It's one place where you can have as much knowledge as you can. But lately, what I've heard from people, I'm not specifically mentioning anyone, that the attrition rate is pretty high in Denshu, very, very high. And that was the same case back in Asia too when I was there. So I completely correlate with that thing. And I know the market has now again reopened after that pandemic thing. And people are just, moving, switching from here to there, considering that I've done the same thing. Sorry. just a week before. So yeah, I mean, that is, and I mean, it is important. I mean, at the end of the day, that what people are doing is that in order to benefit, in order to get, there and help clients and help share the knowledge.
Mhm.
But I can totally understand the things that you would be going through, considering that attrition rate, because I've seen my bosses like VPs, SVPs, facing the same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe back in 2018, it was not that pre-pandemic, I'd say. So I do understand that. And I also wanted to just quickly mention one more thing about the last part that, Dorina mentioned about the book, that the thing that you mentioned, that, I'm glad to hear that, how important is it for life, and specifically, in your life, that oh, the priority has been to explore things, and what your dad mentioned there, not to fear with anything.
Mhm.
And I think so your job always comes second. I have heard a lot of times our CEO of Publicist Group mentioning, Alistair mentioning it, that for him his first priority is his family.
Mhm.
So that is something that I think so a lot of leaders have, and whenever I hear them, I adore them. I have to mention that. So I'm glad that you brought up that point too. So yeah, I mean, we are coming to an end for our episode with our last question, and I believe
Yes.
that this is the most important question, though last but not the least. And I want you to, garner as much knowledge as you can, for all the young marketers out there, specifically. So let me put that question in. That what are the things? I mean, I know that you come from a different background, and you went in the media side. So let me put it in this way, that in your 25 plus or 26 years of career in media specifically, what are the pain points that you had, and what are things that you learn out, and you want to import them to all these young marketeers who are gonna come, or who wanna have the pursue the same career that as you went on. So yeah.
I think my advice would apply to anybody coming out of school looking for work. My advice is that ultimately you control your career and your career path. And if you don't speak up, and you might not know what you want to do in 10 years, but in your current role, you should know where you want to go next. And if you don't clearly voice that, nobody's going to guess. So, and I learned that when I was at a job where I handed my resignation, and when they asked me why, I explained why. And my boss said, well, why didn't you tell me that that's what you wanted? I could have offered you that. So I can't fix, as a chief client officer, I cannot fix something if I don't know that it's broken. I can't help you grow if I don't know that that's where you want to go. So don't expect anybody to clear the path for you. You make your own path and speak up. And if wherever you are, they can't offer you what you're looking for, they're not going to be surprised when you leave. They'll probably be very supportive and hope that you come back, but at least you will have had the conversation. You own your career. I think that is the biggest piece of advice I can give to young people entering the market. Don't come to me and say, well, what is my growth? You tell me what you want your growth to be.
Sorry, can I follow up on that actually? I think that's amazing advice, but I feel like one of the things that a lot of students and like people in young career or like in their careers starting to face is actually not understanding like what should I choose, because there's so many things. Well,
Yes.
if you have any thoughts on this, what would you recommend for those who are, for example, right now in their like account coordinator position, for example, and there's so many things that they can do. They can go into strategy, into search and social, they can stay, they can leave. What would you recommend to help define what I actually want to do?
Be curious. And, if you have a role, you're a coordinator in a search team, but you're curious about strategy, talk to somebody in the strategy team, see if you can't shadow them. Take a look at their work. Don't just, in the shared drive, you've got your search folders and your media plan folders. Go look at the media plans. Be curious, ask the questions. And I would say, actually, at the entry level, your first 5 years, that's where you change it up. Right? If you started in search and you're curious about strategy, don't be afraid to start over again and go into strategy and test it out. I think you don't have to fix to a path. If you start out, you're an intern and you're given a role in operations and that's not what you want to do, then go out and explore. But I think curiosity.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for this advice. And I think for a lot of like people who are just starting right now, like the first one that you mentioned, the second one, this is incredible, really. And this is what really going to help, because a lot of people not really realizing where they stand and where they want to be. So this is just amazing piece of advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to add on to that thing. I won't go to the deep descriptions about that thing, but what Carolyn just mentioned, that if you want something, just go and ask it. So that thing happened with me. I went and asked. I wasn't satisfied, and I moved on. I mean, I don't have a regret that I didn't ask about it. So I think so that piece of advice is so important for all the audience out there who would be listening this. I just want to quickly mention that I got this advice from someone at Denshu, fortunately. So I'm lucky to have that advice when I was Denshu, and I follow it till this day. I mean, if I go on with my manager, I would say just I've just it has been just 3 days that I've joined, but I have mentioned all the things that I want to do when
Yeah.
for example, when I want to go for a leave. It could be a very small thing, but just bring it up front, mention
Yeah.
it so that your boss knows it, and she or she could be inclined with it. I mean, that's really important thing. And the second thing that Darina just followed up. I mean, curiosity is something that could be really important and could be sometimes a problematic thing for the upcoming students, because it for them. So lately I've been receiving a lot of questions from a lot of people who want to intern with publicists, and what they bring up. And if for a minute, if you can describe in your words that how should they look up, like they want to go into a content side, but they also like pragmatic. Okay, so how just from your point of view, a small POV in couple of lines, like how should they figure out who doesn't have a media knowledge, they are just landing up with zero experience, but have done few certifications and want to put a foot on media, but are not sure because they love two ends of media?
I think there's different ways of doing it, right? You talk to people. I think talk to people that actually do that job at that level. Ask them what their day-to-day is. Ask them what their pain points are. Ask them what they love about that job. I think having those conversations, are important to really understand the roles and the challenges that are associated with the role, and what's good about the role. And I think that might give you a better idea of the day-to-day than a job description, is really talking to people. Somebody might say, you know what, I'm a media assistant, but most of my job is not media. Most of my job is budget control reports and clearing discrepancies. And you might go, that's not what I want to do. So I think talking to people is probably the easiest way to get clear answers. And if you're not sure when you're coming into a new company, I think it's fair to say, I think, I'm going to do this, but I'm really interested in programmatic. A lot of companies have learning modules or training sessions that you can join, that you can attend. But I think if you are honest and open about the fact that you might be uncertain about your path, that can be addressed easily right from the start.
And I know we have only 1 minute left, but just wanted to mention that also great example of that, what you mentioned about your job, what's on paper and what you actually do and how it changes. So definitely it helps to talk to people and understand what's their job is like, to understand, if I actually like want to do that or not. Thank you so much. Amazing piece of advice. I know there was a lot of follow-ups, but thank you so much. That was incredible.
You're very welcome. I had fun. Thank you for having me.
For sure. I mean, it was a pleasure to have you, and those follow-ups were really important. I think so from a audience perspective, the people who would be listening it. So I think so those were incredible and invaluable for sure. So thank you so much, Carolyn, for having imparting those important points to those audience. And yeah, I mean, I hope that you have a great evening, and it was a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.